My check 1 2, it's the Y2K collector, and even though I don't have a Switch 2 yet, there are a few Switch 1 games that I'd be looking forward to see how they run on a Switch 2 when I finally do get one. And I do plan on getting a Switch 2 by the end of the year. I'll probably wind up getting one sometime around the holidays. I just didn't feel like it was necessary for me to get one right now. So in this video, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about 3 games that I have for the original Switch that I'll be looking to play on the Switch 2. And then on top of that, I'll talk a little bit about a series that I'm putting together that does involve picking up Switch games that I'm looking forward to play on the Switch 2 when I finally get them. And then lastly, I am going to be answering a request that I got from a subscriber of the channel. They wanted me to basically do a collection review of my DS collection, my Nintendo DS collection. Now, while my Nintendo DS collection isn't huge, it is still somewhat substantial. So I'm not just going to do an entire video on my DS collection. I'll just break it up into parts. So the part of the DS collection that I'll be talking about today are pretty much all of my side-scrolling games. I may have missed one here or there, but for the most part, you'll get a good look at like all of my Metroidvania side-scrolling platforming beat 'em up style games that I have on the DS. And it's a decent amount of games. So without any more jabbering or blabbering, let's get into it. So one of the first games that I'd be looking forward to playing on the Switch 2 is Astral Chain. Now, when Nintendo did their direct like a few months back where they first announced the Switch 2, or did like I think the official promotion for the Switch 2, they announced a sequel to Daemon X Machina. And when I was watching the footage for that sequel, I got really excited because I thought initially it was going to be a sequel for Astral Chain. I thought we were going to get Astral Chain 2. Astral Chain is actually a really, really dope game on the Switch. You basically follow 2 kids whose father is a sergeant in this futuristic police force that where you basically you're fighting aliens, right? So aliens come down to Earth and they basically try to take over. And the way this police force fights these aliens is they've somehow been able to capture some of these aliens, and through this through this mental astral chain, they're able to wield these aliens as avatars. So you actually have like an alien that's linked to you, and you're able to do attacks. It's pretty much a hack and slasher, but you maneuver a lot of your attacks through the alien. So it's somewhat of this symbiotic relationship that you go through. And as you move on, like your chain gets stronger, you learn new attacks, you learn new abilities, and it's a pretty interesting story. Now, the reason why I'd be interested to see this game on the Switch 2 is going to be pretty much the same reason for all of these games, is that sometimes there's a lot of things going on in Astral Chain. It gets really busy, especially when you get to some of the boss battles and the fight scenes. And so there's a little bit of slowdown that I've experienced. So I'm hoping the Switch 2 will improve some of that, along with a frame rate, and just give me an overall, just a better, image of the game, whether I'm playing it in handheld, because it will be a bigger screen, or whether I have it docked to my TV in 4K. Astral Chain is a beautiful game. It doesn't go for that hyper realistic look. It goes more for that like cell shaded anime style look, which I actually prefer on video games. I feel like games that take on that art style have a timeless look to them. So I am excited to go ahead and try Astral Chain out. The next game I'm looking forward to is River City Girls. Now, despite River City Girls being pretty much a 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up, River City Girls is a little bit unique in that it plays more like an open world 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up, because you can take different alleyways and streets, you can take the bus, you can travel through different parts of the city, and it's not necessarily linear. Like, you can backtrack, there's stores you can go into, because it's a beat 'em up with RPG elements. So you can buy sorry about that. You can buy, like, you can go into a restaurant and buy food to restore your health. You can go to different shops and buy different moves. It has a lot of these really cool RPG elements, and it has like an openness to it that I've never really seen in any other beat 'em ups, which is why River City Girls is in my top 3 beat 'em ups of all time. It's a very cool and very unique beat 'em up. A lot of people say that it's kind of corny in that some of the moves that the girls execute are taken from like other fighting games. Like, some of their moves wind up looking like a Hadouken or like a All Yuken or like maybe like a move you would have seen in another like 2D fighting game. But I think there's just a lot of character, a lot of nuance, and most of all, the music. The music is this like late 80s inspired kind of sounding music. Kind of reminds me of like Stranger Things with some of the sections of the music. So I really like this game. It's WayForward. It's pixel glory. I mean, it's pixel art through and through. The backgrounds look great. The pixel art looks great, and this is one that, because again there can sometimes be slowdowns in the game. This is another one that I would like to play on the Switch too and just see how it runs. It's one of my favorite Switch games of all time ever since I got a Switch. I would say this is probably in my top 5, right there next to like Blasphemous, Astral Chain, and a couple others. So this is one that I am excited to see how it runs. And I know we've gotten like River City Girls 2, and we've gotten River City Girls 0. We've got a lot of different renditions of River City Girls, but I feel like the original is the OG. And if you don't have this game, I highly recommend you check this one out. If you're into beat 'em ups, it's definitely worth a shot. And then last but not least, Slave Zero X. So this was more of a recent pickup. If you haven't played Slave Zero X, it plays a lot like if you've ever played Strider 2 on the PlayStation 1. That's what the gameplay of this game reminds me a lot of. It's almost like that 2.5D side-scrolling hack and slash style game. It is challenging. It doesn't hold your hand, but it's very glitchy and buggy. Now, I've seen where they said that there are updates and patches that have fixed that, so that isn't an issue. I still would really like to see how this plays on the Switch 2, just because of the way the game runs, and how the animations in the game work. Again, it has that like 2.5D side scrolling action, but a lot of the action, like the fight scenes, are very fast paced, hack and slashing, maneuvering, dodging, parrying. You got to do a lot of parrying in this game. So definitely a cool game to check out. If you've never checked this one out, I highly recommend it as well. Now, I want to give a big shout out to Joey T for being the first member for the channel. For those of you who don't know, I launched my channel membership last night. It's something that I've literally been toying with the idea of doing that for almost a year. And then I started thinking about it a lot more seriously, like about 6 months ago. And I told myself, coming out of the first half of 2025, that I wanted to kind of shake things up and do something different on the channel. And launching the membership just seemed like a really cool way to connect with my subscribers on a deeper level with different types of content. When I look at the channel metrics for me, and when I look at the overall responses of how people respond to the content that I put out, an overwhelming amount of my subscribers prefer this style of content. They prefer like me just talking. They don't like the edited stuff. They think like edited videos are overdone on YouTube, especially within the gaming space. So they really like the feel of just being in a room with like a friend, talking to a friend about video games. And that's like 85% of the feedback that I get on these style videos. But I do know that there is a segment of my subscriber base that does like different types of content. And so the membership is going to be for those who are looking for just different types of content. There'll be a lot of experimental content that'll be put on there, a lot more cinematic type of stuff. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm actually going to be launching a Switch series where I pick up one Switch game either per week or per month. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I kind of do a deep dive into that game. And these aren't just going to be like any Switch games. These are going to be Switch games that have a modern retro feel to them and that really pull from something that we've seen already either in the late 80s or the early 90s. And that'll be correlated to a period in time that I'm most, I guess, nostalgic for when it comes to these games that I'm picking up. It'll involve a lot of pop culture elements. There'll be a lot of, it'll be very cinematic, very cool. I'm working on it now. I'm brainstorming it now. But there's going to be a lot of experimentation there. And I mentioned on the channel before that I thought about going the Patreon route, but I felt like because everybody's already here, I'd start off with the membership, and based on the feedback and based on, just the response that I get from that, then maybe we will eventually move over to Patreon and do something in that way. But I just wanted to try something different and do something different Of course, whenever you do something different, you get a lot of hate. Not a lot of hate, but you get minimal hate, actually. You get a few haters here and there who want to judge you for doing a membership or things like that. And it's usually people who aren't where you want to be anyway. It's usually people who really have nothing constructive to offer. They just, you know what I mean? They just want to talk crap. So look, the membership is not for everyone. You don't have to be a member. I'm just making everyone aware that we did launch the membership. So if it is something you're interested in, it's there for you. It's kind of like the same way I've treated liking and subscribing to my channel. I don't ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. I don't even ask you to like the videos. In fact, I've made videos in the past telling you to unsubscribe if you're emotionally sensitive when it comes to video games. I have not seen more emotional people than with this Switch 2 launch. It's crazy how emotional people get over Nintendo. You would think that they were executives or they had like high amounts of stock in the company, and I'm positive that in almost 100% of the cases, it's neither. They don't have stock, nor are they executives at the company. But people get very emotional about video games. They get very emotional about Nintendo, and that's not what we're about over here. This is a chill, cool spot, commitment free. If you want to hang. If you don't, goodbye. Like, that's kind of been my process with the channel ever since I started it. And that's the same way the membership is going to be. So enough plugging the membership. Let's move on to the DS collection. So I'm not going to go too deep into each DS game. We'll start off with 3 of the ones that I still have sealed that I actually never have played yet. They're still in my backlog. First up is Thundercats. I picked up Thundercats, first of all, because it was very cheap. This is one of the cheapest sealed games that I've ever bought for the DS, and I'm pretty sure at the time I got this game for under 20 bucks. But when I looked at the screenshots and I looked up some of the gameplay, it just looked like a pretty amazing side-scrolling game, and I grew up watching Thundercats as a kid. So it just made sense when you combine it's side-scrolling, it's pixel art, it looks really good, and it's cheap. This was a game that I wanted to pick up, and I'm pretty sure Thundercats is still cheap. So if you want, like, if you've never heard of Thundercats and you want kind of like a cheap side scroller for your DS, this might be one worth checking out. Here we also have another cheap one. So Legend of Cage 2. This is another one that I picked up just kind of based on, screenshots. It looks like a side-scrolling hack and slasher. It looks like that's what it is. I've never really played it. Actually, I've never played this one. It's still sealed. It's still in my backlog, but it is one of my side scrollers that I have on the DS. I still have this one here sealed. I will eventually get to these sealed games one day, but it did look like a pretty cool game. And then last but not least, you have Mega Man ZX Advent. This too is another game still sealed. I've played a lot of Mega Man in my lifetime, so I'm pretty sure what I'm gonna get here with this Mega Man ZX game. I know there's like Mega Man ZX and then there's Mega Man ZX Advent. There's 2 different ones. I had both at one point, and I think I sold just my regular ZX version. I didn't really know if there was any worth in keeping both. You guys can let me know if there's any real difference between the two. I didn't really think there was, or anything substantial enough for me to keep both at the time, so I sold my other copy. But I kept this sealed copy, and yeah, this sorry. This is another one that's in the collection as well. Next up, we have one, this I have played. So Monster Tale, this is a very cutesy, kind of like, this is like a cutesy Metroidvania style game, I would say. It has like this really cool element where you can call down like little helpers to kind of help you with different attacks. Like, it's been a long time since I've actually dove in and played this one, but I remember picking this one up on a recommendation way back in like 2020, and this one's been in my collection for a while. A very cute, unique, kind of cutesy Metroidvania style game. Definitely one that I would recommend. Sonic Rush Adventure. If you played one Sonic game, it almost feels like you've played them all. This is just Sonic, the DS version. More beautiful, bright levels, more fast-paced action. Definitely one that I would recommend. I think I had just a regular Sonic Rush, and I sold that back in 2022, and then I was in a GameStop and they had this one there for like 20 bucks. So I picked this one up because it was in really good condition and it had the manual. So this was one that I also have, kind of a cool little side scroller there. Naruto Shippuden Ninja Council 4, Naruto Shippuden Ninja Council 3, and I'm gonna just do all these 3 at the same time. and Naruto Shippuden, Naruto versus Sasuke. So these are three very highly underrated beat 'em ups on the DS. Um, these games are super cheap. Like I would say both of these games are under $15, and you could probably get Naruto versus Sasuke for under $20. Grand total of 30 to $35. You could get three pretty awesome beat 'em ups. Some really cool mechanics in here. There are times where it feels like a boss rush type of game because it feels like you're constantly fighting bosses with some of these. But especially with this one, it does have more of an adventure like feel to it. I do have the Naruto games on the Game Boy Advanced, and the first Naruto feels really like a really cool adventure beat 'em up. I would say that one is probably the closest gameplay wise to like a Dragon Ball adventure. But they're all really cool games. Definitely recommend you checking them out. Naruto, really solid side-scrolling beat 'em up games. Then you have this guy here, Commando Steel Disaster. I love this game. This is probably one of my favorite DS games. I always say that this game is if Gunstar Heroes and Metal Slug got together and had a child, that child would be called Commando Steel Disaster. Just because it has a lot of the feel of Metal Slug, but also like the feel of Gunstar Heroes at the same time. Beautiful pixel art. You can throw bombs. You get different weapons. You have different like vehicles that you can fly or drive in. A very, very cool game. The only other game that this reminds me of is a game that I picked up last year rather on the PlayStation 1 PAL version and Rapid Reload. There's a lot of similarities between Commando Steel Disaster and Rapid Reload as well. So think Metal Slug, think Gunstar Heroes, think Rapid Reload. That's what you're going to get with Commando Steel Disaster. Very, very cool game. Aliens Infestation, a really cool run and gun shooter. I have not played a ton of this game. I played a little bit of it, but a pretty cool side-scrolling run and gun shooter game. Definitely one worth checking out if you're into that. Metal Slug 7. I don't need to elaborate about Metal Slug 7. I mean, I think we all know what we're getting with a Metal Slug. You're getting a classic run and gun shooter. If you do happen to go out looking for this game, try to find one that has the poster in it. I think this one comes with a poster, yeah. This comes with like this little cool little poster. I'm not going to open it all the way up. But I think I picked this copy of Metal Slug 7 up at a thrift store for like $6. I think that I remember with this one because I was blown away. I was like, Metal Slug 7 for $6? I'll take it. So you got the Mega Man Zero collection. Not gonna spend too much time here. We all know about Mega Man Zero. This is available on so many platforms. You could get this on the Switch. You could get this on the PlayStation 4. I don't know if they made a PlayStation 5 version of this. But these are just the Mega Man Zero games that came out, I think, on the Game Boy Advance, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're into Mega Man, if you're into Zero, this is definitely the game for you. 4 games in one, a lot of value there. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. You might look at a lot of these Star Wars games and kind of scoff at them, but this one is actually really dope. And it's cheap. It's like a $12 game or something like that. But Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith is actually pretty dope. First of all, it's a beautiful side scroller on the DS. Beautiful colors. Look at that. The animations are great. You do have your lightsaber, but you can also use the Force in this game, which is actually pretty cool. Especially for a 2D side scroller. I think there's some RPG elements there to it as well. I think you can like power up or level up. It's been a while since I played this one as well, but very, very cool game. Underrated for sure. This is one of the underrated games on the DS in my opinion. Keeping it going, we have another run and gun shooter here, Contra 4. Gotta recommend Contra. Anything Contra, Metal Slug, I'm a fan of, if you haven't realized that yet. But I'm a big fan of this because I love when some of these 2D games that came out on the DS utilize both screens, because it just makes the field of play a lot larger. It feels just more open. Sorry, which is important on a handheld like the DS or the DS Lite or anything like that. So yeah, Contra 4, really dope game. Definitely recommend you giving this one a shot if you can find it. I'm going to do these next 3 all at the same damn time, but that is going to be Castlevania, Order of Ecclesia, Castlevania, Portrait of Ruin, and then Castlevania, Dawn of Sorrow. So I don't know if it's released yet or not, but I know that Limited Run is doing the Castlevania Dominus collection, I believe. So you should be able to get all of these games on the Switch here pretty soon. I would not go out and buy these games individually just because they're on the more expensive side. Just like the Game Boy Advance versions, you have Aria of Sorrow, Circle of the Moon, and something of Dissonance, I think. I can't remember. But yeah, so Limited Run has actually been releasing the trio of Castlevania games that have come out on their respective handheld platforms from the Advance to the DS. I don't think we got a trio on the 3DS because I think on the 3DS we just got the same ones that we saw on like the 360 and stuff like that. Something of Sorrow. I can't remember what the DS versions were called, but I don't know if we're gonna get anything from Limited Run on that. I'm surprised Limited Run didn't do like a compilation of the original Game Boy games, like the Castlevania Adventure, like those games that came out on the original Game Boy. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. A lot of those are probably available on the Switch Online service, so you could take that for what it is. But yeah. So the three Castlevania games are definitely in my collection. I've had these for years, so I've always wanted these games. They play great, graphically amazing, like beautiful. I would say when it comes to, like just comparison for comparison's sake, in my opinion, the PlayStation 1 Symphony of the Night is always going to be like the OG, but some of these, I think Portrait of Ruin, in my opinion, is kind of there for a close second for Symphony of the Night. So they're just great games. I recommend you checking them out. If you don't want to pay the crazy prices for these, just wait until they release on the Switch. If they have not already released, they should be coming out in the Dominus collection, if I'm not mistaken. And then last but not least is a game that I talk about a lot. It is another cheap game I recommend you get while it's still cheap, and that is Thor: God of Thunder. Thor is another really like cheap game. I mean, this game at one point was like $13. It still is. Like, you can probably get this game on GameStop's website right now for $7. But believe it or not, this is an amazing side-scrolling beat-em-up game, which again, much like we saw with Contra, utilizes both screens simultaneously to give you a wider field of play, which you kind of need in this Thor game because you do get to utilize all of Thor's abilities, including his lightning. You can throw Mjolnir. You can throw Mjolnir and retrieve it back to you as well. It does have a lot of the standard, like, melee beat 'em up attacks as well, but this is a very good looking, very well done and animated 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up game that was done by who? You guessed it, WayForward. And we know how WayForward does. WayForward is the same folks that brought us River City Girls. So WayForward does just a great job. They really do a great job with these 2D side-scrolling games. I think they're the same ones that did like Shantae. A lot of the 2D beat-em-ups that you love came from WayForward. And so Thor is an underappreciated game on the DS, one that I highly recommend you look at. So these are, that does it for the side scrollers. I mean, of everything that I've shown you, out of all the games that we've looked at today, I would say about half of all the games here are relatively cheap. And by cheap, I mean $25 and under. I know all of these are definitely under 25. You've got Episode 3, which is also a pretty cheap game. I've already told you guys about Thundercats and Legend of Cage, also pretty cheap games to be on the lookout for. Sonic Adventure isn't too expensive, probably 25 to 30 bucks, but I would say half of my collection, and even ZX Advent, I would say half of my beat 'em up collection or my side-scrolling collection is made up of rather cheap games. And then you have this other stack over here of games that are probably more on the pricey side. The most pricey one being Commando Steel Disaster. This is probably a $200 game still. So, I mean, take that for what you will. But all in all, great options. If you don't want to break the bank, start off with these because you can still get them very cheap without having to break the bank, and they're all fun games. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.